in the last stream, we were working on upgrading our burner drills to these new and improved electric drills, and to accompany that, we were also working on setting up these tier 3 solar panels to allow us to fuel the drill here wherever we want in the world without having to run a bunch of energy pylons coming from our kind of main power source, that being the water wheels. And so between streams, I have gone ahead and moved this drill because right at the end of the last stream, we did realize that the previous location, which was just here, was completely depleted of iron. And so now I've moved it over to this next chunk, which if we check real quick, does have a little bit of iron, but I've actually burned through it quite quickly. It had over 3,000 when I first put this down, but the world has been running for a little while here since I put this down, and it looks like, once again, we're kind of close to running out of iron there. My assumption, if I go and check, is that a good amount of that iron is probably sitting in a drawer underneath the cart hopper over here. Yeah, we've got 937 iron down there. We desperately do need to look at getting better ore processing up and running, because right now we're still just turning 1 iron ore into 1 iron ingot, which means we are going to have to keep moving the drills for the iron and the copper at quite a frequent pace. And thankfully, one of the things I do want to work on in today's stream is power upgrades, and that power upgrade is hopefully going to allow us to put down a lot more pulverizers to start getting 2.5x efficiency out of our ores. But before we do that, the very first thing that I would like to do at the start of today's stream is I would like to replace the burner drill that we're currently using for our copper mining over here with another electric drill. So let me quickly check before I replace this. Do we still have a decent amount of copper left in here? We do. We've still got over 3,000 units of copper. I think the reason for that is that right now we are using iron a lot more than we're using copper, because we're turning a lot of our iron into steel, and then steel is being used alongside iron to make both tiers of research automatically. If we open up our advanced storage remote, we should have everything we need to craft these drill components here, which in turn should allow us to get this drill taken care of and replaced with the new higher tier drill. In turn, that also means that we can pick up this conduit here and bring that back with us, which is going to be very useful because I feel like I spent half of my life making conduits at this point. But let's go ahead and drop down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like this. We can set this side right here to be the output so that all the items still go along the conveyor belt and to where they need to be. And then the final piece of the puzzle is, of course, to power this. Between streams, I did go ahead and craft all of the parts required here to get another 10 of these tier 3 solar panels. And so, assuming that I have done this right, which I thought I had, did I not make enough heavy engineering blocks? I really thought I had more of those. That isn't a problem. We do have what it takes, I think, to make a few more of these. We can make 2 more, which is enough to make a few more of these. Gets us to 6 in total. That's still not quite 10 of them. I do quite like just placing these down on top like this, and for the time being, we can just put that in there, and that is going to start to spin and generate more copper. The things we're missing are wood for pistons, and we're missing a little bit more electrum as well. Between streams, I did do a fair bit of deforesting, so we've got 150 logs, and you can see if we go back over here a bit, I also replanted a ton of saplings, so hopefully those are going to continue growing as we progress through here. We do want to look at automating the production of wood at some point fairly soon, but in order to do that, we do have to get lumium first, because I'm fairly certain that in this pack, the only way to automate wood production is via the use of the phytogenic insulator. It's a machine here from Thermal Expansion, and to make that, we need aluminum gear, which requires aluminum ingots, which requires energized glowstone. And currently, we don't have any access to glowstone, and so we are going to have to do a bit more work before we can actually get wood automated, but hopefully the 150 logs that I got between streams should be enough to, at the very least, get us through today's episode of Feed the Factory. And so real quick, I'm going to make some more electrum here and see if we can't get the final solar panels for that copper drill. And not too long later, 1, 2, 3, and 4, there we go. We now have a drill that is slowly going to back up on power because we are producing 10 redstone flux per tick more than the drill actually requires. And now that that is done, what we can do is we can kind of deactivate a section of our rail network downstairs. Now, one thing people in the YouTube comments have been telling me about for quite some time is elevators, because the elevators here are actually fairly easy to make. Usually they require white wool and ender pearls. However, in this pack, you can make elevators using wool and blocks of diamonds. We do have quite a few diamonds now because of the drill that we set up in the last stream. And so if we take 2 blocks of diamond here, we should then be able to use that in combination with 16 wool to make 2 elevators. Now, currently, we do not have that wool, but I do believe that we can craft this industrial hemp fiber into string, and then we can craft that string into 16 wool, at which point we could do something like this, and we can get 2 elevators that are not massively useful here because the distance between the underground area and the overground area is not massive, but what we can do, it is going to make our lives a tiny bit more efficient by allowing us to quickly and easily get down here without having to use those ladders. So if you place 2 elevators down below or above one another, you can then walk over one of the elevators, hit space, you'll get teleported to the one above it, or if you're on the upper level, you can hit shift and you'll go down to the lower level as well. And I guess the cool thing here is that we can kind of place these around the base. Right now, if I want to get to the coal area, I have to go down here and then walk all the way around past all of my minecarts, occasionally falling into random holes that I've left to get to this area. Whereas if we get 2 more elevators, I could put them down, here and here, and then just teleport right down without having to worry about it. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to actually just get rid of this drawer like that, because that drawer is the drawer that is feeding coal to the drills. And in fact, we can get rid of the second minecart now, because currently we have 2 minecarts, and I think this is the one that we want to get rid of. If we check with our rail configurator, this one goes to coal pickup, it goes to iron pickup, copper pickup, and then refueling. This one right here is the one that is just taking coal around for the drills. That one is drifting a little bit, but that's fine. And we no longer need that. None of our drills are coal-powered, and so we can go ahead and kind of put all of this coal back in the system. We are almost certainly going to have to craft it back down into regular coal, because even before this, we were a little tight on space inside of our simple storage network attached inventories. And so let's quickly craft that down. And then by doing this, what we've actually allowed ourselves to do is kind of repurpose some of this coal to be used to make coal and therefore steel. And speaking of which, between streams, I have done a bit of work to try and increase the speed at which we're making steel by increasing the speed at which we are producing coal coke. And so if we head on over to this area, you'll see that now, instead of having 3 coke ovens, we have a grand total of 9 coke ovens, all connected up to the same setup. Because right at the end of the last episode, we had this sequential fabricator, which was able to craft the torches much, much faster, and that kind of put the bottleneck on the coke ovens. Now, the bottleneck, I think, is no longer on the coke ovens. You'll see all of these are completely full on coal, so we're actually backing up on coal, and you'll see that in here as well. This sawmill is also full of coal, and now that we're not using it for the trains and for the drills, we are going to back up even more, which means we can then kind of take some of that coal and use it for today's plan, which is to pivot some of our power generation over into steam power. I'm hoping to unlock these steam dynamos, and once we have those, we can start to filter some of our excess coal coke. You'll see here we have over 1,000 of it now into those generators, which are going to allow us to produce more power, which can then be used to make steel faster, process ores more efficiently, and get research faster as well. So that's the plan. And I think that's really the only change I've made between streams. I've built out even more of these coke ovens. They're pretty easy to make. The coke ovens themselves are just cobblestone and stone, so super easy. And then the only tricky part really is just the pumps and the pipes, but both the pumps and the pipes are basically just all iron, and so it's just a case of putting them all down, getting all the conduits, and configuring them all in the correct way. And currently, by the way, I have changed the way this works a little bit. Before, we had all 3 of these drawers pumping steel around into this metal press. Between streams, I've tweaked it so that now under here, this conduit doesn't actually extract. If I get my Yeta wrench real quick and take a look at the configuration of this conduit, this is set to insert, not extract. The reason for that is that I wanted to have a little bit of steel that we can use for crafting and have all the rest of the steel go to creating research, because at the time when I did that, we didn't have steel backing up in these drawers. Now we've gotten to a point where I believe we've got 64 steel gears backed up in here. So now the bottleneck in terms of mechanics research is just this one researcher that we have. Of course, we could mitigate that by building more researchers, but for the time being, because I have left this going a little while between streams, we do have 204 mechanics research. Annoyingly, still not enough to get us into the next kind of stage of the game with aluminum, but hopefully more than enough to unlock a fair bit of research today. And the first piece of research that I would like to unlock is, of course, the research here for steam power. For that, we need 32 logistics research and 16 mechanics. These on their own are okay, but we can make them better. The standard premise here is that we can make these. They're fairly straightforward. We need steel, we need copper, we need a little bit of silver, and then some redstone and treated wood. Easy enough. But the general premise with these on their own is that you place them down, you pump water into them, and you give them fuel. And in turn, they produce about 40 RF per tick. In fact, let's go ahead and make one of those and just show off how they work initially, because we're going to have to make quite a few of these today anyway. The only thing we're going to have a problem with, as we saw earlier, is silver, because we just do not have that much silver available to us. Now, we did move our drill previously, and I can't actually remember if the drill position that we left it in was kind of continuously getting silver or not. Let me go see if I can't find that drill, and let's see if this has more silver inside of it. It doesn't. I think we left this in a chunk that was getting lead, not silver. Yeah, okay, that's fine. In that case then, let me quickly grab my seismic reader, and let's see about moving this drill over to an area that has silver in it, and seeing if we can't get a bit more silver ore. To make this a little faster, I am going to get another burner drill going here to produce the silver. That is going to use a fair bit of steel, because we do have to use the steel drill head here. There is research to unlock an invar drill head. It's whether or not we want to spend 32 mechanics research on it. It says this is an upgraded form of the steel drill head. It's a lot faster and potentially easier to make. That is tempting, you know. 64 logistics is fine. 32 mechanics is quite expensive, but we do have a lot of it. And so I think I might go for it, because it is going to make it just that much easier for us to mine this kind of stuff in the future. To make it here, we just need 4 blocks of invar, 1 block of iron, and then a bunch of iron ingots. We don't actually need to use any steel whatsoever. And the fact that it said it's a lot faster gives me quite a bit of hope. So I think what I might do, we do have a fair bit of nickel lying around, but we don't have loads of it. And so I think I might go ahead and at least get one pulverizer that we can kind of throw down somewhere to use for duplicating or 2.5xing that nickel. And we'll do the same with the silver that we get as well to try and maximize output on those resources that we don't really have that much of. So we'll take this pulverizer, and for now, I'm going to put it up here. So I'll put it down. Potentially just kind of behind this, maybe. I might put it down like that, and then we can just grab another LV connector and hopefully connect that up to our pre-existing network, and that's going to allow us to kind of just personally process some stuff. So I'm going to set basically all of these sides to nothing, and then we're going to set the back to orange, which is output. And so if we do a quick connection with the wire here, as per usual, I would love to insulate this. For that, we do need some more of the fiber. I should go ahead and replant these fibers, because I did take them up between the last streams, and we don't actually have any growing right now, which is not ideal. But if we do this and this, that's going to bring the pulverizer online. And now if we throw all of our nickel in there, not only is it going to get 2.5x'd, it's also then going to automatically get smelted and deposited into here. We can do the same thing, I guess, with the gold as well. And in fact, if we get maybe a hopper, we could then go ahead and place that down. It doesn't necessarily matter where we place it. If we put it on the left here and make sure that side sets to input, we can do this. We can disconnect that item conduit, and now we can put any ores that we want to be processed into this hopper, and they'll slowly get pulverized and then sent down. The way this works is that you're guaranteed to get 2 nickel dust out of every ore, and the same is true for any ore you process. You get 2 of the dust equivalent. Then you have a 50% chance to get an extra one, a third one. So sometimes you'll get 3, sometimes you'll get 2, but the way that the maths adds up is that you average 2.5x. And so we should get, I think we had like 37 or maybe 40 nickel ore. If we had 40 nickel ore, then we should get 100 nickel ingots, is the idea. And so, yeah, basically now we need to take that nickel along with some of our pre-existing iron, drop that into our alloy kiln over here, and once we have enough invar to make the 4 blocks of invar required for the invar drill head, we can then take this over to that drill and hopefully see a fairly substantial speed increase over the steel drill that we're currently using. Chat is right in that we should save at least 1 nickel ore here to make sure that we can scan for it in the future, much like we're doing with silver, and I should also do the same with lead as well, actually. And there we go. Once we have 36 invar ingots, we can craft that into 4 invar blocks, and that should be basically everything for the invar drill head. So back over here, we do actually already have 9 silver, which is pretty great, but let's do this, and then let's see just how quickly this outputs resources. I guess we're not really going to know how fast it is compared to the steel drill head, but the quest book does say that it is a lot faster. And I guess the most important part really is it's just easier to get, and we can focus our steel on other endeavors. And so now that we have 9 silver, that is going to get us like at least 20 silver when we process it through the pulverizer, which should be enough to get more than enough dynamos for the power that we're going to set up in today's stream. So let's go get that processed, and then let's see if we can't make our first maybe couple of steam dynamos, and let's see if we can't get those set up before we look at augmenting them and trying to make them just that little bit better. All right, so to make the steam dynamo, as we saw before, we need to get the transmission coil. Of course, I probably should get this chest here hooked up to my storage link cable, but it's also probably a good idea that I do have to manually grab those out of there. Otherwise, that chest is going to get fully backed up on stuff. Either way, now we have the silver, boom, and boom, we can get the transmission coil, and with the transmission coil, we should be able to make this dynamo. We do need another steel gear. That is fine. In fact, I'm going to steal some of the steel gears over here, again, just because this system makes them more efficiently than I can make them in my inventory. And other than that, we just need a regular generator from Integrated Dynamics, I think is the mod this is from, and boom, we get a steam dynamo. Now, again, if we put this down, by default, it does nothing. And by default, if you just put some fuel in there, it's still going to do nothing. That's because the steam dynamo does require a coolant. The easiest coolant for us to use is water. And so if we grab a bucket of water, we can put that in the dynamo, and it is going to start to produce 40 redstone flux per tick, as shown in the energy tab here. However, it does use up that water, and so unless we want to keep manually placing water into it, we could do with setting up an unlimited water source. So for that, there are a couple of options we have here. We could use the fluid pump. The fluid pump can be used to pump water out of the world. So for example, we could put a fluid pump down over the center block here. What I mean by that is we could put a fluid pump down here where the dirt currently is. If we put the fluid pump there and provide it with power, it will be able to continually pump water out of that center block, because that center block will just keep filling up with water, and the water will get pumped around into the dynamo. And we can do that by using the pipes, right? So that would work. Alternatively, we can also unlock better ways of getting unlimited water. There's the infinite water source here. This requires 16 logistics research, and kind of along the same lines as the infinite cobblestone generator, the infinite water source here is fairly easy to make, and there are 3 tiers that produce different amounts of water. However, I do think that the best thing that we can get is the aqueous accumulator. Again, a little bit of research required, but the aqueous accumulator is probably our best option for producing unlimited water, and especially as we move further on and we need a lot more water, I think the aqueous accumulator is going to be the way to go. To make it, we do need a regular fluid pump. Again, super easy. Iron plates, fluid pipes, more iron plates. The mechanical component, you guessed it, more iron plates. And so I actually think we do have a fluid pump in the system. We do indeed. The only thing that we are missing is the redstone servo, and boom, we have an aqueous accumulator. So essentially, with the aqueous accumulator, what we can do is we can place this down where we would normally have an unlimited source of water. So right now, this is actually our only unlimited source of water, and to prevent us just burning through it, I am going to go ahead and just leave this one as it is, and I'll set up a new one over for power production. So I'm probably going to move a lot of this to a new area, but for the time being, let's just see if we can't get this set up. So if we do this and this, we can then put the aqueous accumulator in the middle, like this, and inside of here, you'll see that it's instantly full of water. Basically, if this has a water source block on any 2 faces, you don't have to put them down like this. You could put the water here and here, or here and here. That would work completely fine. If you do that, this will start filling up with water. And then from there, I believe we can grab just some regular old pipes like this. And I think that this might be able to auto-eject. It can indeed. And so if we do this and then this should start to fill up with water. And it does. Nice. Albeit not very quickly. Again, we could actually utilize a fluid pump from immersive engineering again to make this faster. There are a few things you could do here as well. There are fluid conduits that we could look at investing in. I don't want to spend too much of our mechanics research though, and so one thing we can do that I think might do for the time being is put this here. It might seem like a waste to use the aqueous accumulator when I just said we could use the fluid pump, but I think doing it like this is faster and requires 0 power, whereas, like I said before, the fluid pump from immersive engineering does need power if you are trying to extract from an unlimited water source, but it doesn't need power if you're extracting from an inventory like the aqueous accumulator. So if we do this, and if we grab our engineer's hammer to set the front here to output. And once again, it looks like we are actually out of hammers. That's not a problem. We can right-click that twice to set it to output. And then now, if we do the same thing with the fluid pipe and the steam dynamo, what we should see is this filling up substantially faster. And you can right-click here with the Eta wrench to rotate it. But look at that. It is full instantly, which is super nice. So now that we have that, of course, we could just pump fuel into there. Again, we're probably going to start siphoning from this coal coke here and using that coal coke for power. But what we can also do is we can take this one step further and we can look at getting the steam and turbine upgrades. Again, a little bit pricey. We do need even more mechanics research and even more logistics research, which apparently we don't have enough of in our inventory, but we do have hundreds of logistics research available over here. And so if we were to quickly try that one more time, boom, we now have access to 2 more augments, those being the turbine augment and the boiler conversion augment. Essentially, right now, what is happening in here is the steam dynamo is taking the water and it's using the fuel to produce steam. And then the idea, I believe, is that it's, spinning a turbine inside of the dynamo and producing power. That's kind of the logic, I think, there. Whereas what we can do here is we can make a turbine augment, which looks pretty straightforward, does require another redstone conductance coil. This one's slightly different, does require electrum, but we do have it, and so we can make that. And then we would also have to make a boiler conversion augment, because now what we can do is if we utilize a second steam dynamo, which just requires 1 more redstone transmission coil, we can now have 1 dynamo be the boiler and 1 dynamo be the turbine. So if I put the boiler augment into this dynamo no longer produces power, it just produces steam. It takes the water and it turns it into steam. It does still require the fuel, but you'll see now it's producing 160 millibuckets per tick of steam, and you'll see it's changed on the outside here as well. And if we look here, you'll see that at the bottom, it says that a single boiler can produce enough steam to power 3 turbines. And basically what that means is that if we once again use another pipe, this time we're extracting the steam, sending it through this pipe into another dynamo, like this, again, yet a wrench to rotate. Now, if we put the turbine upgrade in here, this is now capable of filling up on the steam, and this is producing 160 redstone flux per tick. So it's producing 4 times as much power, whilst still using, I think, roughly the same amount of fuel. And as you saw in the quest book, we can actually put down up to 3 of these, and we can run 3 turbine-based steam dynamos off of 1 boiler dynamo. And so if we want to make that happen, we just need to make some more electrum, I think. So let's quickly grab a little bit of silver, and let's do maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. That should get us a decent amount of electrum. I think we only need 2 more electrum to make 2 more of these dynamos. And at that point, once we have 3 of these down, we're going to have 3 dynamos, each producing 160 redstone flux per tick, which gives us 480 in total off of this 1 boiler augment. And then going forward, of course, we could just make another dynamo and give that the boiler augment, at which point we can basically double our 480 up to 960 redstone flux per tick. And at that point, we're producing substantially more power than we were previously utilizing our water wheel setup. So that's kind of the plan, and I think that's basically the way that we're going to try and produce some of our mid-game power. So let's quickly see if we can't get 2 more of these steam dynamos here. And there we go, 2 more steam dynamos, done. And all we need to do now is get 2 more of these turbine augments, which doesn't seem too difficult once we have the electrum. And so do we have what it takes as 1 and 2, perfect. So it does not really make too much sense. Also, I think if I put this down like that, it goes down the right way from the beginning, which is maybe a little easier than using the getter wrench. It does say in here that this uses 80 millibuckets per tick of steam, and it says here that it's producing 160 millibuckets per tick of steam. And so logically, it seems like it would only fuel 2. The quest book does say 3 though, and so let me give this a try here. If I take some more iron plates out of our researcher and use that to make yet more fluid pipes, and then I do something like this, and of course make sure that both of these are augmented, the steam here does look like it's backing up on both of these machines, and I think all of these are going to produce 160 RF. They do go down a little bit when you start to fill up on power, so you'll see this one's only producing 16. That's just because the internal buffer is full, and it's no longer using much steam at all. And so it does look like it might be able to keep up. We can keep an eye on it. If it doesn't, we can always use 2 to 1, and that would also be fine. But at this point in time, we can quite safely go ahead and connect this up to our pylons. The only thing that we would really have to consider now is getting fuel around into the steam dynamo here. Although, I'm pretty sure that we already have a channel on our main conduit line for coal coke, and that's the black channel. And so what we could do here, if we grab our item conduits out of the system, is we could just go ahead and run the conduit, which I think already runs under here, over and around to under this dynamo, like so. And again, with the Yeta wrench here, if we just tell this to insert on the black channel, I don't know what's happened to that at all. It looks like it's there, but it's not. Let me try that one more time. If I, oh, there we go, it's in. Okay, cool. If I, oh no, I see what I've done. If you shift and scroll wheel, you can rotate through the different modes in the Yeta wrench. I think I was just in the wrong mode there. Here, insert on black, and then let's see if we can't connect that up to the pre-existing pipeline. And there we go. This is now connected. I've run a conduit up and around through to the main line. We can, of course, go ahead and fix this. Whilst I was doing that, though, somebody in the Twitch chat did point out that in this mod pack, the aqueous accumulator doesn't actually need to have water sources down next to it. You can just put the aqueous accumulator down like this with no water anywhere near it, and it will just keep producing water. It will keep this full. I gave it a quick test. You'll see this one here has 8 buckets in it. If we take this and we grab a bucket out, it still has 8 buckets in there. So the aqueous accumulator is definitely worth the research, I think. You don't have to have any water there. It just does the job, which is pretty cool. And this is all working now as well, which is fantastic. So really, all we need to do now to actually be able to utilize this power is grab at least 3 of these LV wire connectors, drop those down along here, here, and here, and then using 3 more insulated wiring, we can then go ahead and hook all of those up to our main power network. And there we go. It doesn't look the greatest, given where I've chosen to put these. We could definitely have this going vertical instead of horizontal. That would definitely be more space efficient, and that will probably look a little bit better as well. But these are all, you know, filling up on power. This one here is going down a little bit, but yeah, these are going to produce power for us, and it's going to slowly but surely burn the coal coke. I think it's probably not going to burn through it faster than we're producing it until we start adding even more steam dynamos. Again, one thing we can do here, if we wanted even more power, is we could invest in some of these hardened upgrade kits. We unlocked these before, and I think we have one of them in our sawmill. But if we get some copper and some tin, we can begin to make some more bronze, and utilizing bronze gears, we can make even more of those hardened upgrade kits, and the hardened upgrade kit can be applied to the dynamo in much the same way that it could be applied to the machine, and in doing so, it will just produce more power and also give it more augment slots. With more augment slots, you can then also augment the dynamo to produce more power. Again, that augment, I believe, is locked behind research. That's this one here. This research unlocks this dynamo augment that then allows the one dynamo to produce more power, albeit whilst using more fuel as well. In this case, the fuel being steam. Let's quickly grab some bronze, though, and just see if the hardened upgrade kit makes much of a difference. I think it's going to make a little difference, but I don't think without the augment, it's going to make that much. So by default, it is 160. With the hardened upgrade kit, it actually goes up to 240, which is pretty substantial. That means that 3 of those are going to produce, what, 720 redstone flux per tick just by getting 3 hardened upgrade kits. The usage does go up to 120 millibuckets per tick, and again, that's probably going to necessitate more boilers, but along the same lines here, we can also upgrade the boiler as well. If we do something like this and like this, the boiler now produces 240, which again, in theory, only carries 2 of these, but I'm not quite sure how that works because the quest book seems to have contradictory information, but we can go ahead and do something like this as well. And now we're producing way more power than we currently need, which means we can potentially now look at making our steel just that little bit faster as well. To do that, we would have to unlock the research for it, which is this here. For that, we need 16 lots of 8x logistics research, and we need 16 mechanics research. I don't know if that's really worth doing right now. Obviously, we're doing fine on logistics, and we've got 112 mechanics. I think that's almost all of the mechanics we have. I do have a little bit more over in here. I think we've got 40 more divided between these first 4 burners. Yeah, so we've got 200-ish mechanics research, but I think basically now we kind of want to leave that going, and next time we want to come back and see if we can't get this aluminum quest taken care of. For that, we need 32 lots of 8x mechanics, which is 256 mechanics research, which is definitely doable. You know, over here, we're getting there slowly but surely. We can leave that going a little bit between streams. We could also, I guess, look at getting the research speed upgrade, you know what, I'm going to go for it. We do need 16 more mechanics, but I think the increase in speed is probably going to be worth it, especially now that we can handle the increase in power usage. So there are actually 2 upgrades you can put in here, the research speed upgrade and the research energy consumption upgrade. The speed upgrade makes it faster and the energy consumption upgrade makes it use less energy. For the time being, I don't think energy is going to be a problem, but let's give it a test. If we make 2 of these, which really don't seem too bad actually, they do need hardened upgrade kits, which we can definitely make, 1 and 2. And then it also requires more machine casing and more electrum. So the machine casing is fine. The electrum is also fine, but only for 1 upgrade. If we want to make the second upgrade, we're going to have to process yet more gold and yet more silver. We need 4 in total, which is 2 of each. So that should get us 4 electrum. And if we take this first upgrade that we've made, it says replace with a gearbox, increase the researcher speed by 30%. So right now, let's take a look. This here should be using 20 redstone flux per tick to produce the mechanics research, and it takes 1,200 ticks. There are 20 ticks per second in Minecraft, and so it is taking 60 seconds. If it reduces it by 30%, I'd assume then that it's going to take 42 seconds for it to finish. So let's give that a try, though. Let's move this over to here. You basically break this block and replace it with a speed upgrade. Now, it should start going again. It does, and it should be faster. There's not really a good way for us to tell how much power this is using, I don't think. At least not until we unlock the capacitor banks from Ender.io. Because right now, I don't think there's a way for us to read the amount of power being used here. And I don't know if it tells us in the quest book how much more power this uses. Either way, we can make another one of these here. And again, really, so long as we don't start, running out of power, I'm not too worried about this using like kind of excessive power for the time being. Let's go ahead and quickly swap out this for this. I think you might lose the progress. Like you might lose the items that you put in if you break this. So like I think when it starts doing the process, it takes 1 of each item and then starts. And then if you break it between the process, it's going to lose 1. But I think that's fine. We should now be a fair bit faster. Not 60% faster. I think the second one is less effective than the first one. But they do still both make the machine faster in general. And so hopefully when we come back, we should be able to unlock the aluminum tier fairly quickly. People are suggesting that we might be able to use the engineer's voltmeter here from immersive engineering to get an idea of how much power we're using. I'm not quite sure if this is going to work, but I know it does give some kind of insight. This just says 0 out of 100 flux. I guess it just shows like energy stored though. It doesn't really show me, I don't think there's a second mode to it. It doesn't really show me how much energy is being used. Talking to the Twitch chat here, I think this is now twice as fast as it was previously. The idea is there's some math down here, but basically it's 1 minus the speed up bonus to the power of the number of upgrades. So the speed up bonus in this scenario is 30%, right? So if we type in speed, this one here is 30% faster. That means that the speed up bonus is 0.3. And so I believe the way it works is you do 1 minus 0.3, which is 0.7, to the power of the number of upgrades. In this case, it's 0.7 squared, which is 0.7 times 0.7. That is 0.49, which is the processing speed. So it's basically doing what it did before in half the time it did previously, which means it's twice as fast, essentially. So this is now processing these twice as fast as it was before, which is great. Again, hopefully, by the time we come back for the next episode, we should have everything that we need in order to get started with the aluminum questline. And in doing so, that, again, is hopefully going to open up quite a lot of stuff for us. Again, I'm really looking to see if we can't find that glowstone somewhat soon, because if we can, that's going to allow us to get into tree farming, which is hopefully going to allow us to not have to spend a ton of time every episode cutting down trees in order to get all of our resources. Real quick, before I wrap up today's stream, I do want to get a couple of pulverizers here. I might start with 1 and see how it goes. I think I'll get 1 pulverizer for each of these. So I'll put 1 above the iron and 1 above the copper, and then we'll try and set those up in such a way that all of the ores from the lower level go up and into the pulverizers first, and then we pull from that pulverizer down into these furnaces. And we'll keep an eye on it and see if the 1 pulverizer is fast enough. If it's not, we could always look at making it faster, or we could always look at adding more pulverizers. But at this point in time, I think it's definitely worth doing, just so we don't have to move our drills quite as often going forward. All right, so we've got 2 more furnaces down here. I have disconnected the wire from like this connection here and this connection here Same on this side as well. So all of the iron goes up into the pulverizer, all of the copper goes up into this pulverizer, and then I've just got cables coming out of the left side of this pulverizer and the right side of this pulverizer to distribute amongst those furnaces. Again, we've also set that to round robin and round robin to make sure that all the furnaces get their equal shot. Now, one thing that we've not had to worry about up until now, but that we do now have to worry about, is that our LV wire relays can only handle 8 connections. And so right now, I believe we have 7 wires coming off of this relay. And so if I try and do this, it's going to work just fine. But then if I try and do this, it's going to also work fine. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 8. Maybe you can do more than 8. I feel like we've got loads coming off of this, which I'm not going to complain about. If it works, it works. It looks like this is indeed working. We've got the output set on those sides, and so we should start to see dust filtering down into these furnaces. Of course, right now, these are all backed up on ore. I'm actually going to go and take all of the ore out of those furnaces and move it back downstairs, just so that we can get the maximum effect from our new pulverizers on all of this kind of excess ore. So we're actually full on copper ore down here. We can make upgrades to these drawers to allow them to hold more stuff, much like we've made downgrades before. This iron upgrade here is going to allow this drawer to hold 4 times the base value, so it's going to go from 2,048 up to about 8,192, and so I'll drop all of that in, and that should be able to hold a ton more copper going forward, which is nice as well. And yeah, I think we are pretty much good to go here. We are at some point going to have to upgrade our power infrastructure, because right now, although we're now able to produce more power, these LV cables can only transfer 800 redstone flux per tick. And so right now we've got 240 here, plus another 240 here is 480, plus 160 is 640, plus the extra 250 that we're running off of all of our water wheels is like 890. And so already I think we're producing more power than our current network can carry. And so basically what it means is that if we start using more than 800 redstone flux per tick, then we're going to start to run into problems, not on the production side, but just on the transfer side. To mitigate that, we just have to upgrade to the next tier of cables. This one says 1000 RF per tick. I believe that's on each connector, and I think that the actual MV wires can move 8000 RF in total. So that is going to have to be something we look at upgrading at some point in the future, but to do that, we need production research, which requires the aluminum that we don't currently have. So next time we'll come back, we will use our mechanics research to unlock aluminum, and then we'll use that aluminum to start producing the next tier of research. Already, we've gained like 15 or 20 more mechanics research since we added those speed upgrades, so this is coming in nice and quick. And yeah, I think we'll do that next time. For now, though, I'm going to go ahead and ramp up this episode of Feed the Factory there.